Hi, I'm Stephen Monteith, also known as the Paper Mage, founder of Fourth Day Universe.
I'm Mallory Dowd. I am the resident young adult lit expert.
I'm John Ellis. I'm the High Energy one.
And welcome to the 5th annual Fourth Day Universe Awards Movie Edition. For the first time ever, we're doing this live action. No superheroes, no robots, no teleporting teens in Japan. Seriously, that was just weird last time. But this year, we're coming to you as ourselves to bring you the best in sci-fi and fantasy from 2014. Movies that were completely overlooked by certain other award shows that will go nameless during this video, at least. I can't promise I won't bring them up in later videos. But just sit back, enjoy, and remember, we have a great show planned for you tonight. Lots of singing, dancing, giggling, taking pictures, and all sorts of fun stuff. Hello again, Stephen Monteith, John Ellis here. We are going to present the standard movie categories tonight. Now these are the categories about elements that go into creating a movie and how well they were done. You've got Best Director, who's the man or woman behind the camera, obviously, who brings everything together. You've got the Best Ensemble, that's all the actors and or voice actors who are involved. Best Movie Universe, which obviously it's all the special effects, all the sets and the costumes and the makeup, and of course soundtracks and the acting, of course, that really bring you into the movie itself. And then there's the most ambitious category, whichever movie put the most effort into making it work, whether it actually worked or not. So, John, what do you think is the most critical element in creating a movie universe that draws people into it?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you have to have some affection for, some in fact passion for what you are filming. If you do not care about what you're doing, if you're just doing it for the paycheck or just going through the motions, the audience will be able to sense it. At some point, you have to vitally care about what you're putting on the screen. It has to be real to you. Because I feel the audience can sense if you're not totally invested in what you're doing. They will hold themselves back because they can sense you're holding yourself back.
Does that necessarily translate into ambition, though? Because a lot of times ambition can be driven by other factors.
Well, I mean, I understand if you're ambitious is that you really want to make the most beautiful movie ever, or perhaps the most innovative use of special effects movie ever. However, I feel that on some level you still have to care about the movie as a way of telling a story. If you do not care about the story, ultimately they won't care either. A good example is the movie Airplane. Years later, people can still quote that movie, and I think the reason why, when so many other comedies from that era have gotten forgotten, is that the people ultimately did care about the characters. They cared enough about the story to even put it there, even though they were mostly doing a spoof movie. They still cared enough to make a movie people wanted to watch and cared about.
Now that brings us around to the ensembles. We used to, when the Uni Awards first started, we used to have the standard acting categories. Best lead actor, best supporting actor, best lead actress, best supporting actress. And ensemble was just, something that we threw in there at the end because we couldn't figure out who were the best supporting and who weren't. I mean, if somebody was a good voice actor, for example, like Andy Serkis, but he doesn't necessarily qualify for, say, an Oscar-worthy performance because it's all motion capture or something like that. That's where I think Best Ensemble really comes in, because it cuts away all of that stuff about who's a real actor and who isn't, and it just puts everybody in there, like how well do they all work together as a team. What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting to bring that up because the recent movie Andy Serkis was in, Dawn of the Apes, which came out just last year, he was the leading man, and yet at the same time, the entire movie hinged on the convincing the audience that he was actually a part of this community of people in conflict. The human characters, the ape characters, there being no true protagonists or antagonists in the story. It was just a bunch of people with conflicting needs and desires that hinged on him being a convincing part of the ensemble. Every actor in the movie had to be convincing as a person, not as, quote-unquote, a good guy or bad guy. And I think that came through, and that while his character Caesar was obviously, for the most part, the point of view character we had in the movie, he wasn't the most important one. In fact, arguably, the most important characters in the movie were the ones who ultimately drove humans and apes into the conflict again. And at the same time, the movie wouldn't work without his performance anchoring it all. If you didn't believe that Caesar really was a well-intentioned man or ape, watching everything fall apart the more he tries to hold it together.
Yeah, and it's becoming more of an issue, especially with movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, where so many characters are starting to be, voice actors in live-action movies who all you really get from them is their voice to carry all their emotions and all their feelings. And you get a character like Groot, for example. He only
has one line, he says.
He has one line, but it conveys so many different meanings and so many different emotions and everything like that. That is pure communication right there. Do you think the Oscars, for example, would ever put a character like Groot on the list for Best Supporting Actor?
Well, it depends. You see, the Oscars, especially in recent years, have come to believe that popular movies aren't the same thing as the best movies. The Oscars have an aversion not so much to science fiction or fantasy, but mostly to the idea that the stuff that pleases the audience isn't the stuff that challenges the audience. And in some ways they're right, and in some ways they're wrong, because in some ways the stuff that challenges the audience is also the stuff the audience likes. For instance, the recent film that a lot of people really loved and some people found challenging was Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you notice it didn't do so well at the Oscars because they thought, well, since so many people like this, it must be, it must just be pap. It must be something anybody can like, so it must not be very special. But I would say it is very special in that these days, a science fiction movie with that kind of pro-human, proactive, optimistic message is quite rare. Most science fiction movies these days set in the future, the idea is that dystopia can't be escaped, that we are doomed to always repeat our mistakes over and over again, and things never will get better. Hear this movie that comes out that even though it does show a dystopian, it does show humans making very bad choices, it dares to say, hey, no, we will find a way to get this right.
So you can see, folks, how all of these different elements tie together. The ambition that it takes to tell that kind of story, the elements that go into creating a believable universe, the way that the actors, create that universe through their actions and sometimes just through their words, and of course the director who has the vision behind it all. Now, the winners for these standard categories are, for Best Director, we have James Gunn for Guardians of the Galaxy. For Best Ensemble, again, Guardians of the Galaxy. For Most Ambitious Film, we have Into the Woods. And for Best Movie Universe, Guardians of the Galaxy. Thank you for being with me, John. We have always enjoyed all of your contributions to the site and look forward to many more. Welcome back. Stephen Monteith here with The Real Malfoy 85. Here to talk about fantasy and apocalyptic fiction, especially in young adult fiction.
It's pretty popular.
Mallory, is the apocalypse the new vampire? I mean, seriously, we used to see vampires everywhere, and now we're seeing the apocalypse everywhere. We had, just this last year alone, about a third of the movies in the Uni Awards have some kind of apocalypse involved in them. When you get to the young adult category, It's twice that percentage. So, what's the deal with so many people wanting to write about the end of the world all of a sudden?
Well, I think it's definitely more universal in a way. I mean, vampires, you can only use it so much. It's not going to get you that far. And the moment has passed on that. But particularly for young adult literature, the whole idea of figuring out what to do, because all of this is new territory. You know, the apocalypse has come, the world has changed, and now I need to figure out where I belong. And with young adult lit, that's really what young adulthood is all about. I mean, you got teenagers, you have people, you know, going off into the world to college for the first time. That's what they're doing. You know, this is a brand new world. Everything has changed from what I used to know. And now I'm going out there and trying to figure out what to make of life. Who am I? Where is my place? And so I think those themes are so similar to each other that they just fit really well in young adult lit. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that means we're kind of oversaturated with it right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have the Hunger Games, we have the Divergent trilogy, and we have the Maze Runner series. I mean, there are so many that are coming out with these themes. I mean, even the Giver, and to an extent, Ender's Game as well. I mean, we have all of these different movies that have been, and books that have been coming out that they explore these themes, and a lot of people are getting really annoyed with that, you know? But that's just, they see that it's working because it does work.
It just seems that, to me at least, it seems that any kind of fiction can be, you know, geared towards the younger audience. I mean, with vampires, you know, there's the obvious metaphors with changes, you know, that you're going through and in that time of your life, and the appeal of living forever versus the appeal of just plain old getting older. You know, it used to be, and very recently even, it used to be that fantasy was a big thing. You know, the Percy Jackson series, mm-hmm. the Harry Potter series, I mean, even Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. You know, I mean, are we going to see more magic? Are we going to see more questing for young adults in the future, do you think?
I would love that, honestly. I mean, we see a lot more of that magic and the mythology and quests and things like the Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel. I mean, that's a huge one. I think they're starting to work on ideas for films for that. But unfortunately, I don't think that we're headed in that direction, at least not yet. You know, it all starts with the books first. If there's one book that does it well and that kind of blows up, then we'll see more like come out in that regard. But unfortunately, while I would love it, because that's where I lean more in my interests, I don't think we're going to see that, at least not yet. Not until maybe, you know, all the Hunger Game movies are done, all of the, you know, Divergent movies are done. Then we'll need to find something new.
If you could pick that something new, if you were to be the one who sets the trend for young adult fiction, what would you like to see explored next?
Does it have to be something that we haven't seen before?
Well, you know, we've had, you know, plenty of genre spotlights on the site, of course. We've covered a lot of different types of fiction. It could be anything, really. I mean, we have, you know, in the special categories that you're presenting tonight, we've had time travel, we've had characters come back from the dead, and I don't want to build an entire genre around that. It seems that vampires covered that pretty well. But, you know, what would you like to see in the future for young adult fiction?
You know, the first thing that popped into my mind when you said time travel, I kind of want to see maybe a step back into the past. So maybe not necessarily time travel, but I want to see a different setting. We are so focused with all these dystopias of the apocalypse and things that are happening in the future. You know, even in a lot of sci-fi these days, it's all, you know, oh, technology has come so far and everything's in the future. I really want to kind of take a step back and see things that are in the past. You know, maybe some kind of steampunk something. And I'm hoping maybe this will be the case when the Fantastic Beasts from the Harry Potter Wizarding World comes around. I think once that universe has been established, you know, it's no longer just Harry's world, it's the whole wizarding world. I think once that film comes out, maybe that'll kind of get us into that mindset of, oh, hey, let's take it back to the turn of the century, back to the end of the 19th into the 20th century, instead of where we're at right now.
Yeah, bringing up Harry Potter again, it's interesting that we've had so many epic fantasies that have played out in fiction. We've had King Arthur, the prototypical epic fantasy for at least the English-speaking world. We've had parallels of it throughout history in all different countries, in fact, all different regions of the world. And Harry Potter, you know, could be considered the modern fantasy quest. He goes searching for all these magical items, not unlike, you know, Arthur searching for the Holy Grail. He goes searching, you know, with his friends, you know, his Knights of the Round Table, if you will. And, you know, modern fantasy, you know, takes a little bit of a step backwards, even, because when you're in the Harry Potter universe, you lose all of the electricity, all the modern conveniences. Harry doesn't have access to the internet. He has to send messages via owls.
That would have made the series so much shorter.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we have a special treat for you tonight. We are going to adapt a certain scene from Harry Potter Book 6. In case you haven't read it yet, there's a scene where Harry and Draco, the other Malfoy, they all get into this big fight in one of the bathrooms at Hogwarts. It's not as silly as it sounds. But Into the Woods, that just came out and that is in several categories in the Uni Awards tonight, we're adapting one of the songs from that musical to fit this scene. Draco, what a surprise.
Harry, good to see you.
What brings you into the stalls today?
I am investigating news of Nargle.
You? Investigating news of a Nargle. Hagrid would not even do that. That is the business of your house elf, or less.
Well, what are you doing in the stalls?
My Ginny has flown off.
Flown off?
Oh, she's a changed witch, Draco. Subject to hysterical flights on her broom. Paths that no seer could predict. I don't know what to do.
What's a pity?
And Pansy Parkinson?
She remains well.
Does she? Now, Draco, do tell me what you're really doing in here. In the library, or Gryffindor Tower, wherever you look, think of it, Harry, how hour by hour she's lost in a book. Agony, it's the last thing I need for the girl that I want
is a girl who would much rather read.
Someone stole my heart, her hair is like straw. No, it's not lavender. Actually quite smart, she's in Ravenclaw, but she sees rock spurts or makes you chase after her. Agony makes you feel like a clown. She's much sweeter than Cho.
Did you get to first?
No, she just reads upside down. Agony, such that wizards must weep. Always with weird books or giving you queer looks, but never a peep.
If it were not for her hair,
Her hair's not that scary, yes it's thick.
It's the thickest.
The quickest is give her a book for a gift.
Yes, but Harry, my kin, it's our thing about blood.
Well, that's sick.
It's no sicker than your thing with Cho.
Cho
Cho
was very upsetting. Not forgetting a witch is inscrutable and she's untamable. It's indisputable. This is unclaimable. Agony, misery.
Whoa.
Not to give her a kiss.
Plus she punched in my nose.
And she wears funny clothes.
And I can't live like this.
Agony. Yes, it really can bite. Ah, well, on with the fight.
This year, we have several special categories. We oddly had multiple films utilizing time travel, or where a dragon played a major role. We even had characters who returned from the dead in what felt like every freaking movie. It would be a disservice if we forgot to mention the monsters who ravaged films, or even the romances, no matter how peculiar they may be. Whether they time traveled by mistake or deliberate intention, characters were transported back and forth, rewriting their own histories and making the world more safe. For the best time travel movie of 2014, the winner is Edge of Tomorrow. Magnificent, powerful, majestic, terrifying, awesome. These are just a few ways you can describe dragons. Some were friends, others were allies. A few were less traditional, but often they were just plain evil. The best dragon movie of 2014 winner is The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies. Many movies had surprise reveals for characters who were once dead come back to life. This year, there were several who had the life transformation, a key element from the beginning. Either way, it seems no one is safe, but apparently not all is lost. For the best character returned from the dead in 2014, the winner is Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy. Wov, twoo wov. Or not really. Romance took an ambiguous turn this year. Were they in love? Who was in love with whom? Did they really love that person, or were they just convenient? Anything was a fair shot, really. Some were destined to be together, while others were just determined. The best romance of 2014 winner is Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Often we think of monsters as evil, bad, and menacing creatures. While that's typically the case, several films this year had monsters who weren't going to be stereotyped. A few even portrayed the soul-searching bad trying to be good archetype. For the best movie monsters of 2014, the winner is the trolls, goblins, bats, wargs, wraiths, and orcs in The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. And that concludes our special categories.
There have been a wealth of comic book movies over the last few years. Some people say a flood of comic book movies. I happen to think it's a treasure trove, especially with the quality that we're getting now. People are demanding better comic book movies, and we're getting them. Honestly, Green Lantern, I didn't think was that bad, but a lot of people did. So now people are just, flooding the studios with requests for much, much better movies. And 2014 gave us some really good ones. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that people are going to be happy, going forward here. It does, however, mean that we have a little less to complain about. We're having a little break here in the program to bring you a composition of my own called Unrest in the Fandom.
We went to war over Men of Steel. We hate Ang Lee's Hulk. If adaptations aren't done right, we sit around and sulk. The whole fandom's festering with unhappy nerds. DC won't let Arrow in their movie universe. The X-Men just rebooted Fantastic Four's in a rush.
And I don't like Thor the Dark World very much.
But we can agree on this one simple truth. The whole world goes crazy when saying, I am Groot. And we know that Marvel always gets their way. Spider-Man will join Avengers, and we will all be blown away. We all hate Joel Schumacher for what he did to Batman. But if Ben Affleck doesn't suck, I'll be one big happy fan.
Well, we've reached the final categories of the evening, the movie categories. I'd like to thank you all for sticking with us throughout the evening. Also, thank you to Mallory Dowd, John Ellis. They've stuck by me for pretty much as long as Fourth Day Universe has been around. And a big thank you to Hollywood. Seriously, you did a great job with these movies this last year. Sci-fi, fantasy, comic book movies. I've rarely had as good a movie-going experience as I had with some of these films. The best science fiction movie this year is Interstellar by Christopher Nolan. Seriously, what a great movie. Space opera that doesn't have anything to do with any kind of war among the stars. It's just about a man who leads a crew out into space to go search for a new home for humanity. We see alien worlds, we see black holes and wormholes, we get time travel, we get a heart-rending story about a father separated from his daughter at the center of it all. Phenomenal work, seriously. The best fantasy movie of 2014 was The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. Now, some people, well, let's face it, a lot of people have said that The Hobbit should have just been one movie, two at the most. But I think there was just so much in The Battle of the Five Armies that deserved to be there. It deserved to be its own movie. And I enjoyed it at least as much as I've enjoyed any of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings style movies. The best young adult movie of 2014 was The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1. Jennifer Lawrence, seriously, is one of the best talents of our age. She did a great job carrying this movie. She had a phenomenal supporting cast, of course. Philip Seymour Hoffman, God rest his soul, Julianne Moore, Elizabeth Banks, and Woody Harrelson. And they did a great job of portraying a post-apocalyptic world that hopefully we never have to see the likes of. Comic book movies. Again, a great selection this last year. And the winner for the best comic book movies was the surprise hit of the year, Guardians of the Galaxy. They took a serious risk on this one, and they brought us humor and adventure and the best comic book movie soundtrack, probably the best movie soundtrack that I have ever heard. Best animated movie, The Lego Movie. Again, Chris Pratt, who was, Guardians of the Galaxy, is also the main star in this movie. A movie that teaches us that anybody can be the special. And the best horror movie is Oculus. It's a little bit of a derivative plot. Scary, magic mirror, drives family crazy, makes them do all sorts of insane things. But you know what? It had a great cast too. Karen Gillan, who was also in Guardians of the Galaxy, gave a great performance as a girl who's just trying to save her family. And that's it. Thank you very much for being here tonight, for watching our videos. Don't forget to visit Fourth Day Universe, and keep your eyes open later this year for the video game edition of the Uni Awards, the literature edition of the Uni Awards, and of course the television edition coming this fall. We'll see you all in the future.